mechanical keyboard just jamming away. Yeah, that's a keeper right there for the cold open. All right, let's see if anyone can give us sound.
Where's C Farsight?
Let there be sound.
I haven't seen C Farsight in a while now. I always get worried when he's not here, just in case. But clackety clack. Okay, I assume that means we're good to go. All right, dramatic.
I still hear your echo. I'm sorry, it's killing me.
I think it's just you, Nick. I don't know. I think it's just you.
Okay.
Okay, dramatic pause for Francois. All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to CanHammer, your source for 40K from the Great White North. Actually, today was glorious, 23 degrees, sunny, not a cloud in the sky. Definitely not the Great White North today. It was nice. So this is podcast episode 206, and I'm back. I think I've been away for, a couple of weeks. I missed the last couple of weeks due to various things, work and headaches and things like that. So thanks for carrying on the show, guys. But as usual, have my erstwhile co-hosts, Nick and Francois. How are you guys doing?
Good to be here. Good not to be pretending to host.
Excellent. Good to be in the background, as always.
So, just to update people, Ontario has had its lockdown extended by 2 weeks, as expected, to be honest, with the current numbers. And to be honest, I think I would rather be locked down for a little bit longer than have to get out and then go back into lockdown a fourth time, which would just be ridiculous. And but Francois, you're in a different stage because you're across the river and that's a different province. You guys are getting out.
It's improving. Our numbers are better. I think Quebec locked down harder and earlier than Ontario, and now we're seeing the results of that in the current numbers, or about half of where you are per population. So, my kid's school is open, which was a big relief. And we're still under curfew, but they moved it back to later in the evening. So, progress.
Yeah. And Nick, you live far north, but it's still Ontario, so you're still in the same boat.
Yeah, like when this last lockdown went down, they just closed the whole province. I know before, being in a semi-rural area, I was able to get away with seeing seeing like a friend or whatever. But with the previous lockdown, they completely killed it. So okay, well,
yeah,
fun's over, kids.
Yeah, I have friends who live in some other rural areas, and they complain because they have seen 0 COVID cases in their area, for a year, but they still get locked down hard with the big cities. So. And for those of you who don't know, Ottawa is sort of a city that's split by the provincial border with Quebec. So Francois lives in a different province, even though basically it's the same city. And so there's...
As the crow flies, I'm 3 kilometers from Darren's house.
Exactly. I can ride to his house in about 15 minutes just across the river. And unfortunately, it means we have different rules, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, it is what it is. All right, enough COVID talk. Tonight we have a great topic, which we'll get to in a minute, talking about tournament habits. But a couple of things to catch up on. First of all, what have you guys been doing in the hobby? Let's start with you, Francois. How many armies have you painted in the last week?
Actually, because since my kids went back to school, I got a little bit more free time. The homeschooling and the playing tech support to virtual school eats a lot of time. But since my kids are back in school, I have been powering away at my Raven Wing. After painting 2,000 points of Deathwing earlier in the lockdown, I have now moved on to the Raven Wing part of the army. And so just yesterday, I finished 10 Black Knights, and today I worked on a couple of Land Speeder Vengeance. And it's pretty cool. I mean, the Dark Angels are this passion project for me. And it's nice to be painting these super cool, iconic models. Like, Black Knights are not competitive, really. They're a little bit too expensive at 45 points a model, but they look so cool.
Yeah, cool.
So I'm really glad really glad I got a unit of 10 ready now.
Yeah, the old days when I used to play 30 Black Knights or whatever. Those were cool days.
Yeah, I painted those.
Yeah, Nick painted most of those with the 2-up, re-rolling invuln saves. Yeah, those were stupid days. How about you, Nick? What you been up to?
To be honest, so I finished up the last, well, not last, but a 5-minute 5-man unit of Death Shroud, and that's going to kind of shut down Death Guard for me for painting for a while because it's a list I like. And as much as I love Death Guard, they're a bit of a pain to paint. So many details. So anyways, taking a bit of a break for this week, playing some video games, jumped on Dishonored 2 finally. And then I'm going to fire up Be'lakor. Got his box out. He's ready because that's what the people requested, Be'lakor.
That's right. You had a little poll going, Be'lakor or Magnus. Of course, Be'lakor was going to win. I mean, jeez.
I'm disappointed in everybody, to be honest. I'm not angry. Like I said, not angry. I'm disappointed. But it's fine. I'll paint Be'lakor. Darren has given me the challenge to paint him exclusively using Chimera paints, the box of paints Darren gave me. So we will do that. And I will try to stream it because I got this fancy camera. So I got to get an arm for it. It's coming. So when that all works out, I can maybe try to figure it out and stream painting and see how we can work it. No washes. There's no glazes in that kit. It's all just kind of like a pseudo heavy body acrylic.
Yeah. So that's going to be cool. I've been so speaking of all these things, so Nick is going to try and start streaming some hobby type things, either videos or live streams or both. And then my basement is going to get renovated at some point, probably this summer, which basically puts my Warhammer area out of commission. And so we're going to try and move stuff to Francois' house and carry on doing streams, assuming everything is kind of, we can do that. Carry on doing streams and stuff over the summer based out of Francois' place. So we'll see how that goes, but that's going to be a little bit of upheaval. But then when my basement is ready, it's going to be sweet.
Darren is going to build it with like 8K cameras in the ceiling and
he's invested $250,000 in this Warhammer stream studio.
Well, I am aiming to make sure that the area, first of all, is carpeted. It's going to have underfloor heating so for the winter games. It's going to be built-in super bright so I don't have to run these lights anymore. And I might even get a built-in overhead camera mount that's centered and wired. So we'll see. I got plans, but
does your wife know you have plans?
No, she does not. Don't tell anybody.
I'm pretty sure she doesn't listen to us, so we're fine.
Yeah. She does not. So my hobby-wise, I was doing Dark Angels, as you people know, but they are now sitting on the shelf to be done at some point in the future. I have, because we are going to be doing some Crusade, which we'll talk about in a second, I am now painting Genestealer Cult. So got my little Rocksaw dude here, and I'm painting them a kind of penal colony orange scheme, which is actually super fun to paint. And
that looks good.
Nice contrast with purple, and I love Genestealer purple is like my favorite purple. It's the best, and so it's going to be cool and actually surprisingly fun. And because I don't have to paint 200 models all at once, I can actually it's not mentally like, oh god, because I'm kind of in that zone where if I look at 200 models, I'm like, oh god, but I can paint 10 models at a time. That's easy. No problem. So I'm doing that. And also when I was on Scari's show, I started painting my Uncle Number 4. And, Uncle Number 3 was not very pretty. Number 2, he kind of died. Uncle Number 1 didn't want to be busted. So Uncle Number 4 is here. And I've had a great time painting this and trying to get it looking like going over it and over it and over it again and obsessing about every little single detail. And I think it looks pretty good, but it is far from what I'd like it. From far away, it looks good, but when you look it up close, you can see the flaws. So that's a cool passion project going on too, and
that's how exes have described me.
A cool passion project, or
no, it looks good from far away, but from close.
All right. So speaking of Crusade, so we are going to start a Crusade campaign after we're allowed to gather again. And it's going to be myself, Francois, Nick, and Phil. And so we're going to get Phil on in the next couple of weeks, and we're going to talk Crusade. And I don't know why we decided to do that. Why did we decide to do that? Just for fun?
It was your idea.
Was it my idea?
Yeah,
okay.
no.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it was your idea.
I think we're just doing it for fun and also as an excuse to start a new army without the pressure of like hundreds of models at one time. So
we needed excuses.
yeah. So we're starting off with like 25 power level Crusade, and we'll be able to play kind of. I don't know what we'll do with coverage. Either we'll film videos or we'll just stream like a couple of games going on at the same time on like the same table. I don't know. It's just for fun, and it's going to be super cool. And that's why I'm painting Genestealer Cults. Francois, you are bringing. What are you playing again?
So I'm going to paint up Witch Cult because the Dark Eldar army that I bought from you has everything except Witch Cult. So that's going to be my Crusade army.
Okay. So you're naturally bringing the strongest army in the game right now.
Well, well, yeah, okay, sure.
Fun.
Come on, I already have 12 armies on the shelf. I don't need to start at number 13.
Well, that's the lucky one.
And I do need to paint like Hellions and Reavers and Witches, so it gives me an excuse to do it.
Yeah. And Nick, what are you bringing?
Space Wolves. So the Space Wolves I bought from you plus the extra $1 billion I spent on them.
So basically, we're playing Crusade with all the armies that I used to own that you guys now own. Is that what you're saying? Okay.
They're all coming back to you.
And Phil, I believe, is doing AdMech.
Yep.
So he'll have to pivot probably once his book comes out, but whatever. That should be easy to do when everything is going to be so strong, probably. But yeah, so that's what we're going to do after lockdown ends, as well as carrying on our usual stuff. So that'll be cool. And it's just easier to host small games like that. So especially if my basement gets shut down, actually that seems like it kind of fits nicely together. All right, cool. All right, last announcement, Ontario 40K League. Clearly, we aren't starting June 1st because the lockdown has been extended to June 2nd. We're still deciding when to start, probably July at the earliest. At some point, we'll decide when to start, but it just...
Come on, June 3rd, right after lockdown.
Yeah, it just keeps getting pushed back and back.
Yep.
So we'll see.
I thought you were going to announce your like Warhammer 40K speakeasy or something like that.
Yeah. Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about good and bad tournament habits. And we can delve into kind of more play-related habits maybe at the end, but really wanted to focus it on habits that are not necessarily related directly to like playing your game. So not like, stay in your 6-inch auras, but, other things either in terms of prepping or things to do on the day, really these things often will help your performance in a general way, but also just to help you enjoy tournaments a little bit more. And whether you're new to tournaments, thinking of going to your first tournament, whenever that is, or whether you've been to lots of tournaments and, just trying to figure things out, hopefully people can find these tips useful. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Okay, who wants to go first?
Well, okay, I'll take it away.
Okay.
Sure.
Sorry, cut you off, Francois. Okay, so if you're not going to listen to me for anything else, this is the most important Warhammer 40K tournament tip. Share it with your friends. Tell everybody. Okay. Pack Advil. Pack Advil. Before you even pack a model, before you even register to the tournament, pack Advil. And the morning of the tournament, take one prophylactically. I'm telling you, it'll change your life.
As a doctor, I can highly recommend this. In fact, I have a dedicated tin of Advil that just sits in my tournament bag. It's still in there. It's probably all expired, but you must take Advil or Tylenol if you can't take anti-inflammatories prophylactically before you start the first round, and just take like one regularly throughout the day. Yeah.
As a fake doctor, I concur with my colleague here.
Yeah.
I have bummed Advil out of Darren multiple times after forgetting my own.
Yeah. In fact, after a round, I often go around asking people if they want Advil.
And so the reason we're saying that, for anyone who maybe has never been to a tournament or anyone who's 20 years old and not broken down like we are, the reason for that is that at tournaments, you're spending the entire day standing on your feet, usually on a concrete or tile floor, unless you're lucky enough to be a CCBB with a nice carpet. And you're hunched over a table for the entire day. So you are on your feet, your ankles are going to hurt, your knees are going to hurt, your back's going to hurt.
You're dehydrated.
Yeah, so the whole thing is you're spending 8 hours or 10 hours sometimes.
Or longer.
Just on your feet, hunched over a table. And that's just day one. And if you don't take Advil, you get home after day one, and then you realize everything hurts. And then you got to do it again for day two if you're going to a GT. So, yeah, the physical, it sounds funny to say it, but playing Warhammer this many hours in a day can be painful.
I spent years competing in boxing, and that was nothing compared to Warhammer tournaments.
I somehow doubt that.
Yeah. So, like, playing
I was in the infantry, and that somehow was nothing compared to Warhammer.
the endurance that you need to play a GT.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, if you actually think about it, playing 40K is very unergonomic. You're bent over because the tables are too low. In fact, when I've been to places where they've raised the tables, is way more comfortable to play. Like,
Tables should be counter height.
you know, like maybe even just like half a foot, not even so much, even makes a huge difference. I should do that at home, but it would throw off the overhead cam. But it makes a big difference over the course of a whole number of hours, right? And also the Advil helps. You get headaches too, you know, because you're dehydrated. It's noisy. You're concentrating a lot. And so that really, all you need is a bad headache and you're screwed basically. Like you can't really play Warhammer with a really bad headache. And you know, the Advil thing loops in with the other health advice, which, as we already mentioned, drink water. So at our events, we always have a ton of free water. Everyone can just grab and drink, and but you can't just have it. You have to remember to drink it. And you just got to keep drinking water. Try not to drink too much booze because that's actually the opposite. It's dehydrating. Drink lots of water. Just keep drinking water. And then that will help with headaches and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'll even go further. And this is something that I do. Make sure you pack a water bottle, like a 1 liter water bottle, and carry it with you. Because most of these places, there's a way to get water, but it's not like people are gonna like bring you water bottles, or you can easily go grab a glass of water from the tap. You will need to go refill your water bottle. So in your tournament bag, you should have a water bottle.
Personally,
Okay, I'll go further. Wait, what about a Camelback?
I think that's too far, but you know what? Actually, maybe that's genius.
constantly sipping.
You didn't even want to argue with that. You're like, wait, what?
No, actually, I think that's genius because you don't even need to like raise it to drink. You just like
And you
the
throw
straw in
off
your
your
mouth.
opponent too, because you're just like they're watching you and you're trying to play. And you're just like sucking on something like.
like Baron Harkonnen.
Yeah. So I'm a firm believer. I think all tournaments should have people have access to water. Either you buy bottled water or there's a fountain or something. It costs you like very little, except at LVO apparently. It costs a lot of money. But yeah, I think that's like if you don't provide food, that's one thing. But like water, you know, water and toilets, right? Okay, so we talked about paint, and so maybe this all goes under the category of, you know, health advice. But the other bit of health advice is bring comfy shoes or wear comfy shoes. Or if it's like in the middle of winter and you're coming to CanHammer team and you have to wear giant boots, bring like some like fuzzy slippers or something. Like bring something that you can stand in all day. Don't bring good footwear.
And whenever possible, this is something I'm terrible at, but whenever possible, sit down.
Yes.
I will stand and pace the entire day.
Yes.
This is something I need to work on. I walk back and forth constantly. I probably get in 20,000 steps in a day of a tournament because I cannot stand still. I have all this nervous energy. But if I just sat down for a minute, I guarantee you I'd play better.
So if you go to CCBB and there's like 300 people playing Warhammer or AOS or whatever, you'll only see 2 or 3 people sitting. One of them is Will Paul, all the time. The other is Andrew Triple. And the third is some random person who remembers to sit. So if you watch Will Paul, you will then learn that you should, in fact, sit whenever you can. In fact, you could probably sit the whole game and just get your...
He's pretty good at playing sitting down, which I find impressive.
Yeah.
He's like, he just throws the dice from his seat.
Well, he's got that shuffle thing from craps tables. That's how he moves his models.
Yeah, but it's like a skill that you have to train and consciously do before it becomes second nature to sit down. And man, sitting down even just for 5 minutes makes a huge difference. So in surgery, we do what we call micro breaks, where if you're standing for like 8-9 hours, that's really hard. So every 20 minutes, 15 minutes, you're supposed to just stop and like move around for 15 seconds. And so even just short periods of sitting down will make a big difference over the length of like 2 days. So definitely try and remember to sit down. And there's usually a chair right beside you and you kick it out of the way because you're annoyed by it.
Yep. There's almost always a chair at the table, so that you have no excuse.
Yeah. Any other health advice, guys?
Well, this is just general health advice, but I mean, it's probably no secret that the fitter you are, probably the easier the tournament's going to be for you. So, I mean, this isn't exactly night before prep. I mean, but just general overall. I mean, a little bit of exercise, a little bit better diet. It'll probably go a long way into your experience of a tournament.
Well, even night before, like, don't eat like an asshole and get drunk on the Friday night if your tournament's on the Saturday. Get drunk on the Saturday night once you already know you're not winning.
That's right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Go out with your friends on the Saturday once you know you're not going to take this thing.
Yeah. So alcohol is an interesting topic, during the day or, between days. I mean, if you're there to try and win it, then you should probably just avoid or be very conservative. If you're not and you're just there to have fun, then go for it,
Let's be honest, most of us are there to have fun.
Yeah, but like some people, I don't know how some people do it, where they're just drinking like horses, but they're still performing like super well. Like I don't understand, but yeah, it's just a little bit of moderation.
It's practice, my friend.
It's practice. Yeah, and enzymes, enzymes that I'm missing. All right, any other health advice?
Oh yes, and now this is gonna sound weird. This is gonna sound real. But honestly, for anybody. So I've gone through various levels of fitness in my life. Right now is not the fittest time. So standing long periods of time, my legs like to do the hello neighbor game. And so you should actually wear proper underwear at a tournament to prevent chafing.
Oh. Yes, that's very true, actually.
I mean, for you skinny people out there, it's not a problem, sure. But I'm telling you, through years of tournaments, the army fighting underwear. Like, honestly, I've worn athletic underwear to tournaments before.
Okay.
On that note.
Hey, you know what? Say what you want, but you do that.
It's actually good advice, yes.
You'll save yourself some pain, yeah.
Yeah, because the chub rub on the second day, not pleasant.
Yeah, exactly. You may not be top table, but yeah, definitely on that second game, and you're just like standing with your knees as far apart as you can.
Yeah. Okay, so night before, pack everything the night before. Pack your army the night before so you have time to calmly make sure everything's in it. Check your list, put all your dice in, put your books in, put your Advil in, get your shoes ready. Do everything the night before, put it by the door, then you're ready to go.
Just so you make sure you don't forget your smasher guns.
That's right.
Also, well, along those lines too, I mean, some people, if you're absent-minded, might want to have a checklist, but literally before I go to the tournament, just before leaving the door, sometimes I'll be driving to a tournament. I'll be like 10 minutes outside of town. I'll stop the car, open up my bags to double check. Like, that's a bit of OCPD there, but have your battle scribe out and confirm, like, eyes on each model in that list is in your bag, because you don't want to go to a tournament. I mean, if it's down the road and you can make it work, fine, but you don't want to like show up at LVO like us, where it's like a, whatever it is, 5-6 hour flight, and realize you're missing key models.
Yeah. But checking is good, but leaving yourself time to do the check, that's the key. So, day before, night before, or whatever, for sure. Unless, of course, you're still painting the night before, which does happen, apparently. All right, Francois, you got any hot tips?
So for me, one of the things that I do, I don't know if maybe I'm just being too prepared, but I have a binder. And in that binder, I print out the player pack, and I print out the facts for all of my armies. So I have my because you always have your codex with you, right? You gotta have your codex with you, but no one ever brings the facts. And have you ever tried to quickly find a fact on a phone? It cannot be done. And during a tournament, you're under a time pressure. So the way that, and you know what? I think I've had to open a binder like twice in my life. But for my own peace of mind, I have a green binder, and everything is printed in there. I use my 3-0 punch and I put it in there, and I print out the fact for my armies, for if I have like campaign books or whatever, and they're all right there, so that I know if I have to check something or if someone challenges me on something, which happens rarely, but it will happen sometimes. You can go, it's right here, and point to it in your binder.
That's very professorial.
Well, yes, there's a bit of that. There's a bit of that there, so I'm pretty sure I'm one of the weirdos who like needs to print out the facts. But I'm telling you, it's working for me, and it brings down my anxiety level, because whether or not I have to use it, I know it's there.
So if you go to LVO and we're there, come hit us up. And yeah, Professor Francois here will give you a grade on your package on what you've prepped.
On the spot.
On the spot, yeah. And you'll know for next time how to improve.
Exactly. Yeah. And it'll be red or it'll be in black.
Yeah. Well, I mean, all jokes aside, that's actually great advice, because at the last LVO that I was at, you don't want to rely on judges, because I know there was a time when we had to consult the fact, and just like Francois said, I'm standing there with a tablet. I'm like, I can't go through a billion pages of fact right here in the pressure, and you can't rely on the TOs to know for sure, the judges or whatever they are. They're not going to be like, oh yeah, I remember that exact fact entry, and this is the right call. No, so it's kind of the onus is on you. So that's actually really good advice.
Yeah, the onus is on you to prove a rule is or isn't the way you say it is. So it's not the judge's onus. They don't know all the rules in the game. So they'll be like, okay, well, show me. And then if you can't show them, they'll just make a ruling, and it may be in your favor or it may not be in your favor. But, that's the way it is. So it is a good idea to print out your specific FAQs, especially if you think something could come up, That's a good advice, and a little folder that just goes in your tray or whatever. That's a good one.
Well, actually, moving on from there, find a good way to move all your shit from table to table.
Yeah.
Because it's not something you may pack your army and whatever, you have a battle foam case or whatever, but you don't want to have to repack your army and your books and all of that into the battle foam every game, because that takes too long. Now, locally, what I do is I bring a little like cart on wheels that a lot of people around here have bought from Canadian Tire and use, and it's really great. Yeah. But if you're traveling longer distances, at least have some sort of a tray or a system so that you don't have to entirely repack your army from game to game.
Yeah. So you can use your display board, or you could bring a separate tray. As Francois was saying, they have these little trolleys on wheels that collapse. So you just like stick it in your trunk, and then it just pops up into like a little like waiter's trolley, which is very useful. So
if you do that, don't forget to lock it so it doesn't fold on you with your army on it, which may have happened to me once or twice.
So yeah, I've got a Nick Ligari used to make these army. They're like a tray on the top, but then it has a drawer at the bottom. And the drawer is codex sized and fits your dice and your pen, and then you put your army on the top. So, and it's a nice little thing. It's solid wood. It's pretty cool little things. You can get lots of those. There's lots of those things out there for you to do. It's obviously different if you have to travel, like on a plane. Then you're a little bit more restricted in what you can bring, but bring something to help you.
I mean, you can get collapsible MDF trays. Like I got one from Hammerhead Games last LVO, and you can pull it to pieces. You can stuff it in the back of your battle foam bag or in whatever carry on or actually luggage that you have. That's perfect. I mean, even like somewhere like big events usually have vendors there. You can email them up, and sometimes they'll bring some of those trays to the event, so you can buy it on the spot.
Nice. So. Nice. Okay, any other kind of prep type tips?
So for the pre-tournament part, that covers pretty much what I wanted to talk about. But I do have a few like meta big things for when you're at the event. I don't know if we want to talk about that.
Okay, yeah, go for it, Francois.
So one of the things that for me is really important, but again, that's a very much a me thing. You guys know me. I talk all the time. I cannot be silent, which is both a pro and a con at a tournament. I'll explain what I mean. At the table, I'm a big believer in playing by intent. But you cannot play by intent unless that intent has been verbalized, right? If you don't say, this is what I mean to do, then how do I know that that's what you meant to do? And anyone who's ever watched a game between me and Darren on stream knows that I basically have my inner monologue is an outer monologue. When I play, I say everything I do as I do it. And I play exactly the same way at tournaments, which sometimes people find annoying, and I understand, but that's just my process. Now, it's a good thing because no one has ever accused me of not stating my intent because I always state my intent. The issue is sometimes as I am verbalizing everything that goes through my head, I also give my opponent too much information. And you do have to be mindful of that. Just at the table, if you're talking all the time and you say, well, I could do this or I could do that, sometimes you're helping your opponent at the same time. But all in all, I think it's better to speak too much than not enough, because I've had opponents at the table who are silent the entire game, and that's actually kind of annoying.
I think it actually more people could definitely err more on the side of talking than not talking, from what I have observed amongst most players. And not only just to state intent so that people know what you're intending, and then you can save time that way too, right? But also so you don't forget things, because you're giving yourself verbal cues. So I think that's a good habit for people to get into, is to talk out what they're doing. Yeah, for sure. And maybe we get more practice because we're on stream, and so we're trying to tell the audience what we're doing. But I'm not that great at it. I'm definitely not like Francois doing it, especially later on in the game if it's getting tight or whatever. I tend to just stop talking. But yeah, Francois, you're really good at talking, like constant.
Well, I make a living explaining things, so I think that's where it comes from.
I'm not great at it either. I'm trying to get better. Of course, nobody wants my inner monologue to be my outer monologue. But yeah, I try to get better at least at describing my intent, if not, divulging all my curious thoughts.
So,
well, you are a chaos player.
Well, that's true. I mean, some people might want to see inside my mind.
Okay, so dice. Okay, dice management tips. Number 1. Bring 2 or 3 colors of dice, but that's it. Don't bring a bag of 100 different dice, because then you can use your colors and you can code your colors. And if you get used to doing that, then you remember what colors are what, and it's very easy for you to do multiple things at the same time. If that's too complicated, then just bring all the same colored dice. No big deal. And then organize your dice into groups of common denominations that you roll. So the best example is when I used to play bike spam, custodes. I'm rapid firing 6 all the time. So I put my dice at the beginning of every game in blocks of 12 and 6. So all I had to do was grab a block, and I know how many dice I got. And then I had 12 red, 12 black. And so it becomes very easy, and you have to be slightly obsessive about it to start with, but then it really speeds things up. Number 2, obviously roll where people can see what you're doing, and roll conservatively. Okay, roll in an area. Don't fling dice across the table. Don't flick it up from 5 feet above the table. It's going to smash someone's model and knock things off the table, and people can't see what you're... that really annoys me when people are throwing dice. Just roll in a little area that's safe. Everyone can see what you're doing. No problems. If you have to, bring a little tray. Yeah, bring a little tray and just roll in the tray, okay? Oh man, one of the pet peeves when people are just flinging dice all over the place, and they're like, did you just knock my model over with your freaking thrown dice? What's the point? I get the drama and everything, but it's really not necessary.
and just to add on the dice etiquette there, one thing that I really appreciate my opponents doing, and I try to do, is pick up the misses, not the hits. There's a couple of reasons for that. A, if you're hitting on threes and you pick up the 1s and 2s, I can see that everything left on the table is 3s, 4s, 5s, and 6s. So I know you've done it right. But also, we've all made mistakes. Like sometimes I roll my dice and I'll pick up the ones and twos, and I'll not see one, right? And then if I do it this way, Darren will be able to tell me, oh, you forgot a two there. And I can just go, oh, I'm sorry, and just pick it up. And this is the fairer way and the less mistake-prone way of rolling your dice while we're on dice etiquette.
Yeah, and also
Agreed.
when you play Custodies, you have to pick up fewer dice that way.
True. But even if you're playing orcs, like, don't pick up the... Well, I guess if you're playing orcs, I could see actually picking up the hits, because otherwise it'd take forever. So it's not a hard and fast rule, but I think pick up your dice in a way that makes it easy for your opponent to follow along what's happening.
Yeah.
And play with dice that are not, like, super reflective. There's a couple or that are easy to read. I'm going to call out my friend Charlie here. For a while, he was playing with these super fluffy orc dice that no one could see what the hell he had just rolled. They were brown on brown and impossible to read. So do your opponent a favor. Bring dice that are easy to read from a distance.
If you're serious about the tournament, or even just moderately serious, don't use novelty dice. Just get some normal
the Nurgle dice.
Yeah,
all the dice also drive me up the wall.
If you're dedicated to using novelty dice, like I am sometimes, okay, I love my Tzeentch dice and my Necron dice. Actually, there's ways you could use them without actually using them. So for Necrons, I use my Necron dice when I mark objectives that have banners.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's a good idea.
Yeah. For my Tzeentch dice, I can either use them as command points, or same thing for banners, or use them for wounds. Because that quick kind of like, quick assessment of the dice rolls isn't all that necessary for wounds. You can take a moment to be like, okay, that's 3 or 4 wounds and whatever else. But yeah, generally I would agree. I mean, as much as I'd love to roll those dice, don't roll those dice.
So basically, any GW novelty dice, don't use, because they're all impossible to
Lumineth Realm Lord's dice.
Oh, God.
Oh, no. Deepkin dice.
Yeah.
No, the Realm Lord dice that look like they were like crafted in ancient Greece, like they're not even dice sized.
Yeah, they're like these like 8-sided cylinders or 6-sided cylinders or whatever.
Or those squig dice that just bounce everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So I have those, both the best and the worst $20 I've ever spent.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a whole bunch of dice etiquette, but those are kind of the big ones, like your opponent wants to see what you're doing, so do it where they can see. And don't make the opponent feel like some shady stuff's going on,
Put yourself in the opponent's shoes. How would I want the opponent to roll the dice? Do that.
Yeah, and if you added up the amount of time you spend rolling dice over the course of a GT, it's a lot of time. So whatever you can do to make it more efficient means more time to do other things. So that's where, organizing your dice, colorizing your dice, into batches, stuff like that. If you roll a lot of dice, we don't have much of that these days, but, dice blocks or stuff like that, very useful. Sometimes people get a little bit fluffy and bring like dice towers, and so they're constantly fishing dice out of the tower and putting it back in the top. And just don't do stuff like that. Just bring a little tray if you have to.
I don't mind if they do that because they're on the clock, so they can waste all their time.
This is something we should talk about, clock etiquette as well, but maybe we'll get there.
Yeah, like I don't want to get into like slow play and all that sort of stuff, but we can talk about some things to help people with keeping track of their time if you're not on a clock. So who's got some time-keeping tips other than using a clock?
Well, so other than using a clock, it's actually kind of hard. And in fact, for some of us, i.e. me, the reason I use a clock is to slow myself down. Because my biggest failing as a player is I play too fast, and I don't give myself the time to think. Like I'm a very active person, and I need to always be in movement. And so if I'm not playing with a clock, I'll play my 5 turns in an hour, 45 minutes sometimes, right? But there are key moments in a game where you really should stop and think and game out and math out the possible scenarios. And I tend not to do that unless I'm playing with a clock. Because if I'm playing with a clock, I can glance at the clock and go, oh, I got a ton of time. I'm going to slow down here for a minute. And I think as much as people tend to focus on the slow players because those are the most aggravating. I think a lot of people are like me, and they actually would benefit in taking time to think things through. And if you're the kind of player who, like me, likes to just be in the action all the time and just move and roll dice and go, 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 playing with a clock might make you a better player because you will realize that, depending on the army you play, it's not all that hard to get your turns in an hour and 15 or an hour and 30 or whatever time that particular tournament is giving you. And it's your time. You should use it. If you end the game with an extra half hour on your clock and you've just lost by a point or two, you probably could have won that game if you just stopped and thought about it.
Yeah, I think that's a thing that you can learn from experience as well as clocking yourself, how to pace yourself. The other thing that I like to do is at the end of each battle round and at the beginning of your turn, just look at the clock and see what the time is, right? I think that's actually something that both players should do regularly throughout the game, especially if they're not playing with clocks. But that's just a good habit to get into, just to give yourself that awareness. Because when you're in a game, sometimes you forget you're even at a tournament, right? You don't hear anything around you, you don't see anything around you, you're just in the game. And so just to step back at the end of each round and say, okay, we're at the end of turn 2, here's how much time we got left. Okay, let's go, let's do this. But I think that's a nice
100%. 100%. I agree with that because actually the best I'd ever done is when I've taken things slowly and, on a clock, but at the end of each round, particularly like rounds like turn 1 and turn 2, because those are kind of like the key action turns.
And the longest usually.
And the longest, yeah, at the beginning of my command phase or movement phase, because this was a while ago, put the clock on myself, and I'd honestly just take a minute, 2 minutes, 3, maybe even 5 minutes, I don't know, to just kind of like sit there, think, pace, go get a drink, go chill out, because you can get this like game tunnel vision, right? Where you're not considering all your options, you're not really seeing the game state for what it is. It's same like in chess, where it seems like all of the observers know the best moves other than the actual players, because there's this kind of like you have the in-game pressure that you have to deal with, and trying to pull yourself out of that is super helpful to give you a bit more awareness of what's going on, and might open up some options that you wouldn't have seen had you just kind of motored on and continue. So I found like that's when I've done the best at a tournament, is when I've been able to successfully do stuff like that and just chill out, take a moment.
So it's called situational awareness, and it's something that you can actually train. And it applies to many walks of life, many jobs. We train situational awareness in medicine because, you're doing a surgery, you don't realize 3 hours have passed. And so it's just about developing situational awareness of what's outside of what you're doing immediately in front of you. And that can really help you in terms of pacing and just overall performance for sure.
Well, same thing in the military. If you're out on patrol, kind of seeing what's around, having note of what's going on around you outside of your immediate kind of action lane or whatever. Yeah, definitely.
All right. Okay. Let's finish this off with maybe your favorite thing that you wish you could do better, or what you feel like something that you could really work on.
Okay, for me, I think the thing that I wish I was able to do to turn myself into an actual great tournament player is I wish I could focus on just one army, because I have this hobby ADHD where it's no surprise to anyone who's been listening or watching our stream games. I keep cycling through armies and starting new armies and new projects, and I'm like a dog that sees a squirrel. Squirrel. And I get like excited by something new and shiny, and because of that, I feel like I'm proficient at a lot of armies, which means I rarely get surprised by something someone does across the table, unless they're a chaos player, because I don't play that shit. But I am not an expert at anything, and that's holding me back. I feel if I could just buckle down and play a singular army for even just 6 months, I would turn into a better player because of it. And I had plans on doing that before COVID hit. And I had all these tournaments mapped out, and I was gonna take my Imperial Guard to all those tournaments, and I was gonna stick to it. I was gonna just play Imperial Guard for like 6 months straight in all the tournaments, and then of course COVID, and that didn't happen. But it's something. Once we can play again, there's gonna be really this thing where I'm going to be really excited to play all the armies that I've painted. And so I'm going to probably alternate armies for the first few months of post-COVID tournaments. But after that, I'm really going to try to pick one and stick with it.
Okay. Nick, how about you?
No, I think that's kind of great advice. I've kind of fallen into that trap right now too. And the best tournament results I've had in a recent memory is from using the same army over years. So, I mean, I know there's an appeal to play a lot of different things, and I mean, it's great. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you really want to get good and, want to succeed at a tournament in particular, yeah, definitely, you got to put the work in and put in the reps with the same army. And actually, so separate from that, though, one thing that's really bitten me over the years at different tournaments is not doing my homework, and that is like knowing what other armies do, so you can spend time before the tournament, the evening of this first night of the tournament, whatever, doing a little bit of research on each army, understanding kind of what their big gimmicks are, what their big things are, because I've been bitten a number of times because of that one thing I didn't know, and that cost me a game or cost me whatever else. So definitely do your homework. You can't expect to do well if you don't put in the work. And part of that is homework, like studying what armies do. And that can be studying the codex, that can be battle reports, that can be playing against a bunch of different armies because you're friends, whatever. But either way, find a way to get that done.
And even at the tournament, you can actually do that. Like in between rounds, and once you're probably facing X army, if you have buddies at the tournament, and most people, we travel in packs, right? So if I'm at a tournament, there's probably a couple people I know. If I know I'm facing this army that I'm not super familiar with, but I also have a friend at the same tournament that is familiar with that army, you can take 5 minutes and go, okay, what should I watch out for here?
Yeah.
So I don't have the problem you guys have of playing too many different armies. But actually, I'm going back to one of our earliest advice on this cast, which was to sit down. And as a man who's getting older and having aches and pains, not sitting takes its toll after even just one round, and you regret it later. So I got to work better at sitting down. Every time I see Will Paul, it annoys me. Even when I'm playing against Will Paul, he's sitting down and I'm not sitting down. And then I'm like, oh, God, I'm going to sit down. And then eventually we're both sitting down. But then
on the same chair?
Sometimes.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But yeah, so I got to get better at sitting down. It's just such an easy thing. It's just so... It's so annoyingly difficult to do sometimes. All right, we're going to go to the Discord. Some people posted there some of their habits and things. Okay.
Questions for next show.
Yeah, rolling dice in open space. So this is a good one. Bringing snacks, water, and caffeine. Okay, yeah, we didn't talk about food. Not all tournaments have food or have readily available food. So bringing some kind of snack is often a good idea. That's definitely something that we forgot to mention. Pens.
Oh, yeah. That's a big one.
Bring a pen.
100%.
Yeah, I just have a dedicated pen that just lives in my army bag. That's the pen that goes with me everywhere. It's been in Seattle. It's been everywhere. That's just my 40K pen.
And it's something that in our increasingly digital lives, we don't tend to use pens as often as maybe we used to. But at a tournament, when you have to fill out a score sheet, you need a pen.
Yeah. Oh, here's another one. Keep your own score. So each player should keep their own score, and then it should all agree at the end. But yeah, keep your own score.
Yeah, because people make mistakes, yeah.
That and get into the habit, even when you play practice games, and not malicious, keep track of your opponent's CP. Don't leave it to them to have some CP counter, somewhere that you can't see or whatever. Keep track, confirm your numbers with their numbers. It keeps you aware of what they can do, But also make sure the counting kind of registers, right?
Well, as long as the CP dice is visible, which it should be, I don't think you should have your own CP dice for your opponent. Just make sure that when they are using strats, they are remembering to flip the dice, because sometimes people do forget.
That's what a typical opponent would say that doesn't want their CP tracked.
So you know what? I have these tabletop tactics, like dice holders with a card that says command point on it, and I put it on the tallest piece of terrain on the table.
All I'm hearing here is our next game, I have to really track your CP.
Sure. Yeah, please do that so I don't forget.
All right, so we got, do your research, practice matchups, shower, and add deodorant. Yep.
You know what? This is a meme, but I actually have not run into someone with bad BO at a tournament. This is kind of an internet meme, and I'm sure it happens. But maybe my nose is just not good. But I've never run into someone that was offensively smelly.
Okay, here's
similar to deodorant. You can actually get, back on my underwear issue from earlier, you can get body glide sticks that you put on your thighs to help the gliding so you don't chafe. I'm telling you, you're laughing.
No, when I was a long distance runner, I used to do that.
Exactly. I'm gonna catch you
on
in
the
the washroom
too,
at
so
a
your shirt doesn't chafe.
Next CCBB, I'm gonna walk in the washroom and awkwardly catch you as you're trying to apply it, and I'm gonna be like, "I knew it, you you SOB, I knew it," and I just walk.
Okay,
out.
so here's one I know hardly anybody does: read the pack.
So I read the pack every single time.
Yeah,
he grades it too.
Corrects it, errors.
Yeah, exactly. He sends it back with track changes. Gives you a deadline.
Okay, so as a TO, this one is good advice. If you have conversions or anything that's out of the ordinary, send it with pictures to the TO beforehand for approval and keep record of said approvals. That's good advice. Get a good night's sleep the night before. Obviously, it's always good to get a good night's sleep, but not always easy. Drink all the water. Yep. All right. Let's see. Easy win, easy life. Okay. Score-wise.
Okay. I think we're forgetting the most important thing to do at a tournament.
Which?
Have fun?
The most important thing is to have fun.
Well, that's what GW says we all should be doing.
Well, to be fair, I don't know about you guys, but even tournaments that I've lost all my games, I've always had fun.
Yeah, but you say that, and at every tournament, there's one or two people who are just freaking miserable.
Well, those people are miserable in general. It's not because they're losing games at a tournament.
Well, I understand if there's reasons for people to be miserable at any particular time, but if you're feeling that way before you go to the tournament, maybe, let the TO know, and maybe just, I don't know. You don't want to make other people miserable as well. But, yeah. By far, I would say the majority of people at tournaments have fun, whether they're there to win it or just to play games. We ultimately, most of us play this hobby because we find it enjoyable in some way, small or large. But yeah, so do remember to have fun. Yeah. That's the most important rule according to GW.
Well, and people have this, I think, mistaken idea of what tournaments are like. I can count on literally one hand the bad experiences I've had playing at tournaments. In fact, I've had more issues playing pickup games at local stores than at tournaments, because at tournaments, everyone knows what they're in for.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Tournaments are fun. Everyone should go. Okay, so we are done. Thank you very much, guys. Pleasure again. Thank you, everybody, for watching, following, commenting, subscribing, being patrons, being members of the Discord, being part of the community, and hope everyone's staying safe. Next week, we have the return of Steve Joll. So we managed to somehow convince Steve to be a semi-regular host with us, where we're just going to talk because it's so fun talking to Steve. And I missed it last time, so I'm going to really...
Yeah, I was going to say, you weren't even there.
So I'm going to super enjoy that. But we've got Steve on next week. And what else we got next week? Are we doing Crusade next week with Phil? We might be doing that. Or maybe that's the week after. I can't remember.
That's the week after.
Okay. And yeah, so stay tuned for that. Look out for the schedule as usual, published on the weekend. And otherwise, everybody have a good night and stay safe and have fun.